You know, when people hear that some African villages say no to roads, electricity, or the internet, most people jump to one conclusion. They say, oh, they must be poor. They don't understand progress. They've been left behind. But that's not really the truth. This story is not about people being left behind. It's about people choosing. It's about memory. And it's about protecting the way they live. You see, many of these villages have seen this before. They've watched what development did the last time it came in places like Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, Senegal, and Ivory Coast, DRC Congo. Roads and electricity already arrived once. And when they came, life didn't get better for everyone. Land was taken. New taxes appeared. Soldiers showed up faster. And resources were moved out. Those roads were not built for the villagers. They were built to move minerals out, to move soldiers in, and sometimes to push people off their own land. So when a village today says no road, it's not because they don't understand. It's because they remember. For them, saying no is a form of self-defense. And here's something else people don't talk about. Roads bring the government attributes, not freedom. Roads don't just bring cars. Electricity doesn't just bring light. The internet doesn't just bring information. They bring visibility. In places like Cameroon and Ethiopia, villagers often say something very simple. Once the road comes, the government comes. And they're right. Roads bring census workers, tax collectors, land surveyors, police, soldiers, even NGOs who don't always ask permission. A village without roads is hard to control. But a village with roads becomes easy to see, easy to map, and easy to manage. So for some people, being invisible feels safer than being controlled. And that's why sometimes saying no to roads, electricity, and the internet is not about fear of progress. It's about protecting life as they know it. There's also something deeper most people don't notice. It's about time. Before electricity, time moved slowly. In villages in places like Namibia or northern Ghana, life followed the sun. People worked when the sun was up. They rested when it went down. At night, people talked. They told stories. They listened to elders. There were no screens. So elders held the knowledge. They remembered history. They settled arguments. They taught the young ones how to live. But electricity changes time. When light comes, night turns into work time. Sleep becomes optional. Phones stay on. Minds stay busy. And once phones arrive, something else changes very fast. Youth stop listening to elders. TikTok starts teaching faster than grandparents. Google Answers replace lived wisdom. Before, knowledge had roots. Now it scrolls past in seconds. In many villages, elders have already seen this happen nearby. They watch respect disappear. They watch children leave mentally, even while staying physically. They watch culture weaken, one screen at a time. So some villages resist, not because they hate technology. They resist because they understand something very important. Once time changes, culture changes. And once culture changes, it never goes back to the way it was before. Communities, northeastern Uganda, what they reject: road penetration into mountain settlements, grid electricity. The people live in remote mountain villages and intentionally resist roads that would cut through their land. Roads would bring land claims, alcohol traders, and forced relocation. Electricity is viewed as unnecessary and disruptive to communal life. While nearby towns modernize, villages remain difficult to access by design. Isolation protects their autonomy. Now let's talk about electricity and how people live together. Electricity brings television. Television replaces storytelling. Screens replace gatherings. In many African societies, firelight means connection. Darkness means rest. Night is sacred. But electricity brings noise, constant activity, and private life. People sit alone with screens instead of sitting together. So when some communities say no, it's not because they are afraid of technology. It's because they value togetherness more. And then there's the internet. The internet doesn't just give information. It also takes culture. In villages in Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, Uganda, and Nigeria, people worry about sacred dances being filmed, rituals turning into content, local languages being mocked online. Once culture goes online, it stops being lived. It becomes something people consume. That's why some communities prefer to tell their own stories in their own way instead of going viral. There's also the land. Villages near forests and rivers understand this very clearly. Roads bring logging. Electricity brings mining. The internet brings land buyers. In parts of the Congo Basin, Ethiopia, and Namibia, villagers reject infrastructure because it invites outsiders who do not protect wildlife and rivers. The villages often protect nature better than big NGOs. We also have to talk about the spiritual world. In many African belief systems, land is ancestral. Paths have meaning. Forests are sacred. Silence is holy. Infrastructure can disturb burial grounds, cut through sacred forests, block spiritual paths. So for these communities, development is not progress. It feels like spiritual violence. Here's another question people rarely ask. What is more important, comfort or freedom? Planners ask, how can we connect them? Villagers ask, who controls the switch? Who owns the road? Who decides our future? Some village communities choose no electricity, but full freedom instead of electricity with dependence. That's not backward thinking. That could be political wisdom. And this part is very important. These villages are not anti-technology. They are selective. They want control, not exposure. This is not rejection. This is careful, curated development. So here's the final thought. Some African villages are not running away from the future. They are protecting it. However, in this modern era, roads, electricity, and internet are very important to connect communities together. How do governments and planners work this out with the village communities so that both sides are satisfied with the new development? Should governments listen to their concerns and work with them? Let us know your thought on this. Here are real, widely reported African villages and communities that continue into the 2020s and effectively 2026 to restrict or resist roads, grid electricity, or full digital connection. Himba villages, northern Namibia, what they reject: grid electricity, paved roads, full digital connectivity. In northern Namibia, many Himba villages still live without electricity or paved roads by choice. The Himba people believe that modern infrastructure breaks their connection to ancestors, cattle, and land. Their villages are designed around firelight, not electric light. Roads would bring tourists, police, and land buyers deeper into their territory. Some Himba communities accept solar lamps for basic needs, but they strongly resist power lines and highways. For them, development without control is a threat, not progress. Mercy communities, Omo Valley, Ethiopia, what they reject: roads into core settlements, permanent electricity, internet access. The Mercy people of Ethiopia's Omo Valley have long resisted outside access. Roads make it easier for the state and tourists to enter their lands. Electricity would change daily rhythms tied to cattle, rituals, and seasons. Elders fear that phones and internet weaken authority and oral tradition. While pressure from the government is strong, many Mercy villages still block road expansion and refuse electrification projects near sacred land. San Bushman settlements, Namibia and Botswana border regions, what they reject: Permanent roads, centralized electricity, state housing grids. Some sand communities continue to resist roads and grid electricity because these systems make them dependent on governments that once displaced them. Roads invite mining, fencing, and wildlife loss. Electricity brings surveillance and forced settlement. Many sand villages prefer solar lamps, radios, and footpaths. Their resistance is rooted in survival. Past development nearly erased them. Maasai villages, Kenya and Tanzania with selective resistance. What they reject: highways through grazing land, grid electricity, and traditional bomas. Not all Maasai villages reject development, but many reject how it arrives. Roads divide grazing land and bring land buyers. Electricity pulls youth away from herding life. Some Maasai accept schools and clinics but block power lines and highways. They want development on their terms, not projects that erase pastoral culture. Ik communities, northeastern Uganda, what they reject: road penetration into mountain settlements, grid electricity. The Ik people live in remote mountain villages and intentionally resist roads that would cut through their land. Roads would bring land claims, alcohol traders, and forced relocation. Electricity is viewed as unnecessary and disruptive to communal life. While nearby towns modernize, Ik villages remain difficult to access by design. Isolation protects their autonomy. Baka forest communities, Cameroon and Congo Basin, what they reject: logging roads, grid electricity tied to mining. The Baka people live in deep forest regions and actively resist roads because roads mean logging. Electricity usually arrives with mining companies, not community benefit. Once a road enters the forest, trees disappear, wildlife vanishes, and outsiders take land. The Baka protect isolation because isolation protects the forest. Bijagos Island villages, Guinea-Bissau, what they reject: bridges and roads connecting islands, centralized electricity grids. On the Bijagos Islands, many villages still live without roads or electricity. Elders believe that spirits protect the islands only if balance is maintained. Roads and cables would disturb sacred land and invite mass tourism. Some villages allow solar power but reject permanent grid connections. Their resistance protects culture and environment. Hadza communities, northern Tanzania, what they reject: permanent roads near camps, electrification. The Hadza are one of Africa's last hunter-gatherer groups. Roads bring settlers, alcohol, and land loss. Electricity pulls children away from traditional skills. Many Hadza camps relocate when infrastructure approaches. Their survival depends on mobility and low visibility. Let us know your opinion on these developments in Africa through your comments.